The Splitting Hairs Podcast. Go big, go blue, go Jacks.
Welcome to the Splitting Hairs Podcast, where San Diego is not a state, Bison is spelled with an S, and Wile E. Coyote never gets it done. Hopefully this Saturday they do get it done, though, right, Stack?
Hey, yeah, the Bears have not been great this year. I'm talking about my Bears, unfortunately. So hopefully these Bears take the L this weekend. It's the only time I want them to lose this year, so let's get it.
I love it. Well, we should say welcome to the Splitting Hairs Podcast, presented by the Wild Hair of Brookings, South Dakota. Voted one of the best bars in Brookings, South Dakota, which is awesome. Really happy that they joined the movement here at the Splitting Hairs Podcast and Splitting Hairs Media. Very thankful to have them as a sponsor. If you weren't aware, they are going to be closed on Thanksgiving, but other than that, they're going to be ready to rock. This weekend, they will have the Jacks game playing on the main screen, as well as the audio piping through, and it'll be on all the other TVs as well for everybody's viewing pleasure. Likewise, want to run through their specials they've got going. Happy hour every day from 3 to 7. All day happy hour on Sundays and Tuesdays. $3 Wild Islands on Thursdays. Fireball Friday, that's today. Shots are $3. $1 tequila shots, Fridays only. That's also today. $4 double wells Wednesdays, and you guessed it, Fridays. Game day specials on Saturday are $10 a bucket of domestics and $22 buckets for seltzers only during the Jacks game. And that's what we've got for them. Thank you again for them sponsoring our shows and participating in all our shenanigans. Want to shout out Team Utimark Insurance as well. They're licensed in the state of South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa for life's curveballs, whether it be with your health or life insurance. Make sure you check them out. They have products that work with Medicare. They can help you demystify the entire healthcare coverage process and help set you up for success now and into the future. To get in touch with them, reach out via email to me, and I can plug you with one of their friendly agents today. So shout out to them. Big ups to Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro, the OG from day one, keeping everybody caffeinated at Jack's games. They got your uppers. With the booze, you got your downers. Everybody drink responsibly. But in my opinion, you can never have too much caffeine. So go into their main location. Make sure you get their espresso. You can also dabble in some teas if you partake in those, but usually that's just for the British and people who have a different taste. The Bistro's also got good eats for you. Fresh farm-to-table food. They got great breakfast, so check them out before you tune into the Jacks game if you are not making the trip to Springfield. It's going to be a big one on Saturday. As I said, second season starts right now, right? The focus and finish is a big part of their mantra. I think nothing encapsulates that more than focusing on this matchup and finishing it out strong, as they did last week. And Stack, let's dive into that before we look ahead. What impressed you on Saturday?
I'd say just the versatility of all our running backs. I think, one thing that was really cool to see for me is that these guys are kind of responding a little bit. Like, I think, if you're Amar, for example, people are like, oh, well, Angel's looking like RB1. Like, yeah, take that personally. Get some big runs. Let them know, like, I'm one of those dudes too. Like, I'm a part of this 1-2 punch. And KTV, his celebration was absolutely hilarious. Like, that was fun to watch. I think him putting his shoulder down and really running through guys last week, I think that's going to be real important going forward in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Like, giving guys different looks. If you get a bruiser back there, no one's going to be Isaiah Davis, obviously, especially, KTV's a young guy. But I mean, he's showing flashes that I can be that guy that can run through people's faces. And you get a dude that can get you a good 3 to 4 yards consistently, down in and down out. Like, bro, you're going to be able to wear teams out during the postseason. So that was good to see. Our secondary Juice had a good game. That was good to see, having him back there and Tucker Large, two guys that are ball hawks and guys that love to make plays and love to have fun and let you know that they're making plays. That kind of energy is infectious. That demoralizes the other team, like we talk about a lot. So just the energy on both sides of the ball, and it looks like our guys are having fun. And like, that sounds so cliche and like lame, but like, that is huge. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what a team looks like when they're out there and they're feeling sorry for themselves and they're like playing nervous and all that. Like, it was good to see the Jacks play free and have fun playing football.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the magic. You know, we've talked about it towards the end of last pod, but the thankful board. Part of the reason it was so bonding is because the grind of the season wears on you, man. And back then, you know, and through the years, we didn't have the facilities that we have now, the Taj Mahal of the John Stiegelmeier Family Center, and then SJAC, which is one of the largest indoor facilities in the nation with a 8-lane track around it as well. And, you know, just these awesome resources that we have for football. We had what we called the gravel pit that we practice on the Double Crown. And we had, you know, a lot of those features. So being able to bond through the struggle and the grind of the season and have that product translate for 2.5, maybe 3 hours of pure joy on the field, that means a lot. So to see them dancing, hitting the Prezi, as I call it, and doing the headstands, I thought it was just pure fun and excitement that the kids were out there translating what they do on the practice field to the game field. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this game is playoff seeding. Like, this week is just huge for everyone. And I think, you know, hearing from some of the guys, like, they're taking it super dead serious. You know what I mean? Like, you got to take care of business.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think one of the things I want to touch on that you brought up about the running backs, we've been hammering it throughout the past several weeks, where like they rely on their natural instincts so often and they can get away with it against maybe lesser opponents. But what we saw against that 3-4 odd front, we started trying to run off tackle early, but you know, it was there on a big run from Amar, but then they started kind of putting the clamps down on it. But as the game progressed, we started hitting it downhill. Stack's favorite word, downhill, with the running game. And I think that the coolest part about that is you're starting to see Amar be patient, plant his foot, stick it, and get downhill, which obviously lent itself to a lot of success no matter which running back was in there, whether it was Amar, Angel, Kirby, or deep into the bench with Begeman getting some run, and then also the young buck from Minnesota. Or no, not Minnesota, Missouri. Not Woods, because he still got his escaping me right now. Chad will help us.
But I was also thinking that, you know, Amar in general, I think that's where he's had most of his success too. Even like looking from like when I was playing with him, like when he sticks his foot in the ground and just gets going, I think that's when he's the best because he's quick. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like if you get a defensive lineman thinking you're going like, oh, this is hitting C gap, and then boom, it's going B, like they don't have the time to recover. And your offensive linemen are just, you know, at that point you can just lean on guys, right? So I'm saying, I think that plays to his strengths more. I think when we all get just hitting the ball downhill, like you're playing to your offensive line strengths at that point. If you get that, you're playing with like 2nd and 6 rather than like, you know, God, and penalties too. We got to get away from that. But I mean, when you're playing 2nd and 6 versus like 2nd and 11, because we're dancing around back there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like we were talking about last week, like the holes be there. Like if you're watching the game, like the hole will be there. But you know, if you're playing against good D linemen, these guys get, as Coach Stig would say, like these guys are on scholarship too. Like they get paid to play football too, right? So when you're playing at this level, like you're not going to have a whole bunch of time to like really decide what you want to do unless you're just playing like, you know, school of the blind somewhere. Yeah, especially going to the playoffs, we're gonna have to get used to just like decision making is going to have to be now. Yeah.
Sense of urgency, patience to it, speed through it, as great running backs coaches I've been around have been harping on, you know, throughout their entire coaching careers. And I think you saw that translate on Saturday. I was just hyped because I got to see the Diamondback pistol formation make an appearance. We had a nice little end around. I think it was to Angel, and I want to say Brenner did exactly what you're taught to do as an H-back, where you don't chase, you look for work. So he continued upfield looking for work. But I think if he slow plays that off the edge a bit more, he could have cleaned it up, because they were so slow in diagnosing that play. They fooled the defense so much they had a chance to undercut the play. That play is going to hit for something later on in the year, I guarantee you. And I think let's put a placekeeper on that because you're talking about those guys are on scholarship too. I want to address something that Matt Rule brought up earlier in the week that became really viral with respect to the 105 scholarship limit at the Power 4 level, a player roster limit, but also it pertains to scholarships and how that will impact the FCS. We'll touch on that later in the show, but I just want to give y'all a little teaser because it's not all doom and gloom for the FCS. I can tell you that. But as far as some of the comments that I'm seeing here, Joe Allman did step up, and I want to touch on why he had to step up. And Stack, I got to get your opinion on this too, my man. So when you're a blitzing linebacker and you are slowing up to not get a late hit penalty, and you subtly change your pad level and your pad height rises because you're trying not to absolutely end the life of the quarterback that you're about to unload on, and you make contact with his face mask, in any forcible contact to the head and neck, regardless if you launch, because Bach did not launch on the very first play from scrimmage, and he gets canned. Now, I don't have a problem with the penalty. I do have a problem with the ejection, because what is punitive behavior supposed to do? It's supposed to quell the action from taking place in future instances. But as we see across the college football landscape, that never happens. It's ridiculous. It needs to be reevaluated. And they need to do something like, honestly, basketball does with like a flagrant 1, flagrant 2 situation to really start to clean up the way the game is regulated, right? Because I think we can all agree that we don't want the competitive sway to be impacted so much by the Zebras. I mean, and to their credit, I mean, the replay did its job, but they didn't even call it on the field. So if they're not calling it on the field, let the people with the greatest vision, I would say, take the reins on something like that, especially when they're in the game flow. But there's obviously two sides to it. But what's your take on that?
I think I'm as a former D lineman, I'm biased, obviously, but I think to a certain degree, like, when you're playing quarterback, like to some degree, like, bro, you signed up for this, right? Like, you can take a hit, right? Like, no one's like, I think it was the Steelers game yesterday. Like, I think Russell Wilson got like picked up and then like dumped, right? Like, that kind of stuff is unnecessary. Like, you don't need to be picking him up and after play landing on with the full force of your shoulder. But like, if you're looking at it and it's an accidental contact, like he's not trying to take your head off. Oh, all right, Brian. Look, B Will tatted up. I see you, but I'm saying, sorry, he got me off track. Like, if it looks like some of Graham's hit, for example, I love you, Graham. I'm not calling you out. Like, some of those, like, he has bad intentions. They're like, he's trying to take your head off, right? And like some of those, I get it, where they're like, all right, we got to toss this dude or else somebody's ending up in the ICU. Like, I get that. But like on a hit like that, first play of the game, senior day, brother, you got to let some stuff rock, in my opinion.
That's it on senior day. And now their job is not to get caught up in the emotion of it, but that's not to say that their decisions don't have reverberating impact, right? Like if a decision like that, for us, a guy like Allman who stepped up to the plate big on Saturday into a situation, and he is ready because Jimmy gets all those guys ready. Coach Bobbitt and crew, they all do an excellent job of making sure everybody's ready to rock. Next man up mentality. They preach that for years. But I just don't understand why they don't move to like a flagrant personal foul type situation where you create a distinction, you flag them. It impacts the game still like it should if it's against the letter of the law, but I just don't see it quelling any of this behavior, because the thing is you're making high impact decisions like in less than a fraction of a second when you're reacting in real time. And it's absurd. You'll see guys tossed for personal fouls and targeting when they're literally committing their bodies before the player moves. And let's say they do a spin or they're falling. And because the offensive player's pad level changes, they get ejected. It's trash. It cuts at the integrity of the game. And the rules of the game are already starting to lean so heavily in favor of offenses that it's just it impacts the product. And that's all I'm getting at. I think they need to, revisit that. I feel bad because, if there's anybody that embodies what a jackrabbit is more than anybody, it's Adam Bach, with his preparation, his commitment to success. the way he plays the game. He's a quiet killer out there, and he's been so fun to watch. And to not see him just absolutely be able to dominate against SIU on senior day, that was a bummer. But I know he's going to be locked and loaded for Saturday, and we built some depth. So there's always a silver lining.
So yeah, someone's going to pay the price for that. I'm sure we'll find out which guy it is on Saturday. We'll see, like, oh, that hit was for that. You know what I'm saying? But
Exactly.
again, to speak on, who Bach is and his character, like, dude's like Captain America for this defense, bro, for this entire team. You know what I'm saying? So
KP out here saying Bach heard Labanowitz was looking for him, and he just decided to dip early.
Hey, man, yeah, you got to watch out for the big dog Stone, man. You never know about him. A whole lot of bark, though. You got to call him out.
I've been seeing his workout pictures lately. Dude looks absolutely yoked. I don't know. It must be that South Florida weather and some of the vitamins they got down there, but absolutely yoked.
So I heard in Florida you can get juiced up pretty quick. That's what I hear. I don't know. You might have to test him, give him a piss test.
Dan, friend of the pod, says the NCAA won't revisit it because they don't want it. They don't want it to be subjective, and they just say it's for player safety. I think you mean objective. Do you mean objective or subjective? Because right now it is highly subjective, and it's not for player safety when it doesn't deter the behavior. So that's kind of what I'm saying. So if it impacts, I don't know, reevaluate the amount of the penalty yardage that it should be. Do something like that to where, I mean, it can impact, objective, where it can impact the game as opposed to taking the player off the field. The player can still obviously participate and then, have his impact come subsequently to maybe he, bounces back, makes a big play, gets a pick. But if you can him and boot him from the game, I don't see it having that intended effect because it doesn't stop the behavior. I think I beat that horse dead. Shout out to the racers. And yeah, that's a great point, Brian. We do have more home games, so the crowd will get a chance to see Adam Bach again at least one time. We got to take care of business, play in the present, as Stig would say, and really get it done. Second season begins now, right? I mean, this is for all intents and purposes a seeding game, and we got to go out there and leave absolutely no doubt.
So yeah, you saw NDSU took care of business with these guys last week. So they're going to be hungry. They're going to be ready to prove something to themselves, to the committee, everyone. I think, the Jacks don't really seem to, other than like Augie, don't really seem to take anyone lightly, haven't taken anyone super lightly this year. So, I mean, I'm expecting that going into Saturday, but you just kind of don't know what you're going to get with these guys. Because, I mean, I'd say their offensive power is impressive, but we got a defense like ours that's really like, not to discredit anyone, like it's one of the better defenses the FCS has seen, like, period. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so you're gonna have to bring it. You're gonna have to bring it if you want to do something against these guys.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Stack. So took some notes on this. And when you're looking at historical, high productive, high powered defenses, what you're seeing from the Jacks this year has been pretty incredible, especially when you factor in SDSU's defense is allowing just 12.7 points per game. That's to USD's 13.6 points per game with one less game played. NDSU allows 16.1 points per game. Montana State's defense allows 17.5. Now we have, according to different rating systems, the number 9 or number 8 strength of schedule overall to NDSU's 8 or 9 strength of schedule overall, depending on how you flip that coin and how your bread is buttered. But that's incredible, man, especially when you consider how many times we pulled our starters early in the third or in, not even for most of the second half. And the guys are still doing their due diligence to try to, hold them to fewer points than that 10 threshold that we like to see. I will say this is unacceptable for guys to give up a 4th and 6 TD on Saturday. That was frustrating. I know those guys, I know they were trying their best and they kind of got caught looking or slipped or whatever in the secondary, but we got to make sure that doesn't happen for us fans so we can just continue to just rub it in people's faces, the points per game that we're allowing. I know that's their number one priority, right? But I think overall, great defensive effort. Joe Allman did step up. I will say this. He did benefit early from a drop ball. Everybody was highlighting that slant pass. That was a drop. Like, I'll give Joe credit where it's due. He seems like a dog in the making, but that pass should have been caught. The complexion of the game kind of takes different shape if he catches that fourth down slant, gets into SDSU's territory. I still think we get a resounding dub, but we'll need to make sure we get to our drops, get to our spots quicker. And after having a full game under his belt, I have no doubt that he'll be able to do that if his number's called in subsequent contests. Good question by Jim here. We should definitely address this. 2023 defense, 24 defense. Which one is better? I mean, it's kind of tough to compare, but
yeah, they're just that's really hard to say, just because if I'm looking at
a lot of the same pieces too, right?
A lot of the same pieces, right? And like that's kind of what I mean. I'd say a lot of the same pieces, and there were players on that defense who have been playing a lot longer who I don't know, because like, would I kill for Dyshawn at corner right now? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
And the other thing is too, in terms of rushing the passer, no shade thrown at the current chain gang unit, but don't rush the passer the way that 23.
Yeah, you want K Tavir on your team. I don't care what year it is. Like, we could be in 2099 if someone's like, yeah, dude, like, what D lineman would you just like? Yeah, give me K Tavir on my D line rushing off the edge for sure. Like that.
He's an all-timer. We should definitely. Cade is an all-timer. I don't know. He started getting some love. We called him Playoff Cade, right, for a while. But Cade Tervier is just one of those under the radar. I think he's been one of the best D linemen the Jacks have rolled out there.
Because he was a quiet dude. Like, he wasn't too mouthy about anything. Like, but bro, he literally had like consecutive weeks with sacks. Like, he'd have like 4 weeks in a row with like multiple sacks or something like that. Like, also playing alongside Reese Winkleman when he was playing. Like, bro, there are pieces from that defense that would be awesome to have on this defense. I'll put it that way.
I think what we want to do is just say, man, we've been blessed with some damn good defenses the past 3 years. Defenses that have only given up 1 in 22, 2 this year. And so like 3 losses in 3 years. That's insane. Especially against 2 FBS opponents, right? So pretty wild when push comes to shove. And in the game that we lost this season, obviously that was not necessarily a reflection of poorly played defense. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I know they're chomping at the bit to get that one back on the schedule later on.
Yeah, and I think it's just tough just because, like, when certain people are playing, like when you have like a all-timer guy in front of you, like, it's hard to see probably the best production you're going to get out of another guy. Like, I'd say an example as like Jared DePriest, right? Like, he was playing behind like a ton of guys who were awesome. Like, could Jared DePriest have started? Yeah, right? Jared could have started probably like 3 years ago. But like, you're playing behind Caleb Sanders and Ryan Van Marl, who turned into an absolute animal like his last 2 years there. Like, and same goes for Ryan. Like, Ryan didn't play a whole bunch. The second he starts playing a lot, he's an animal. That's just how it goes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to get the best version of some of these guys when they have to split time with other really good players.
Absolutely. I think another thing that I want to touch on, moving over to the offense quick, we touched on defense a lot, which is good because we don't normally spend this much time on them because, quite frankly, they don't give us that much to critique or to talk about, which is excellent. But in terms of Mark was highly efficient, 11 of 17 on the day for about $185. That was excellent. Captain America doing his thing on the offensive side of the ball, while Captain America, the defense, was taking a nice recovery day. Griffin Wilde emerged, continues to be a problem for secondaries in the Missouri Valley, especially when we target him. He gets into the flow of the game early. I like seeing that. David Alpers, speaking of being mouthy, he's got a little edge to him. I like that out of the tight end unit. As long as he's not drawing any taunting penalties, I do like that. Getting him the rock for about 33 yards on the day, that's good. And he continues to be a force in the run game, creating a little collision that allowed Amar to spring free on one of his touchdowns. Amar just having an absolute one of his, in my opinion, I think Amar had, I think I wrote this in the Rabbits recap. I think that was probably his best all-around day as a Jackrabbit. I think his best performance in terms of most vital was 22 against North Dakota State.
Yes, yeah.
In the Fargo Dome. And then what he did in the Natty title game too, obviously benefiting from just an absolutely masterful called game by Coach Zach Luan. And then also, pacing and spelling Zay is always a nice little benefit when you're able to have the thunder and lightning, as we called it affectionately back in the day. But I think all around, obviously hauling in passes, and then just absolutely being a problem in the run game was excellent. Sticking his foot, this is the most physical I've seen him run as well.
Yeah, and I think, maybe I don't want to try and like read his mind or anything like that, but I think maybe you're saying like once you see success in that, like it's going to be hard for you to not want to do that again. Like that's kind of what I'm more excited about. Like when we're kind of trending in the right direction of like, okay, like this is how I'm going to run going into playoff season. Like, oh, that is going to be beautiful coming up against some of these teams that really never see run like that. Like that's one thing I always loved about playoff games is that when you're a Missouri Valley team and you're going playing against like your Sac States and your, Villanovas and stuff like that, like a lot of these dudes just don't know what they don't know, right? So when you roll up there and like, it looks one way on film, but like when they have to try and defend the run like that all day, like they can't do it. You know what I'm saying? I love that more than anything. Like that, I think it was 21 where we were flying all across the country back and forth, playing all these different people. Cause it's like, when it's not a Missouri Valley opponent, it's like, bro, these guys have no idea. And like,
yeah,
that's one of my favorite things. Like seeing other fan bases, like when I was on Twitter and like, you're tweeting back and forth with another fan base. I was like, bro, you don't know. Like your players are going to get out there after the first quarter and be like, coach, I've never seen anything like that in my life. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, it's a function of like where these schools in the Missouri Valley are located, hotbeds for recruiting, like with the Illinois schools, Illinois State, Southern Illinois, stuff like that. But also it's the main show in the entire state is South Dakota State Jackrabbit football. Main show in the entire state of North Dakota. We know who that is. You look at all these other schools. I mean, when you're going out to Eastern Washington, you got Oregon, you got all these other Sac State, same thing. Villanova, you're on the East Coast in a hotbed of FBS options, right? So I think personally, people are like, the MVFC is down this year. I don't think it's down. I think the top has just separated themselves so much from the rest of the field with coaching, resources, and then obviously experience. That's going to lend itself to a good product on the field. And you're starting to see that. North Dakota State, South Dakota. You have the FBS transitioners here, Missouri State. They have a admirable record at 8-3 this year. Then you look at Illinois State, they're 8-3. I mean, there's a lot of quality records and resumes out there in the MVFC this year. Some teams that historically have been up or down, like UND and UNI was abhorrent this year. And I think that's a little bit of a function of Farley kind of being 1 foot in, 1 foot out in terms of style and ethos and how he builds his teams with the NIL and the portal and stuff like that. And plus UNI, Northern Iowa, has a very suspect situation in their athletic department to, according to their own contingent. So that's all that needs to be taken into account when you're talking about playoff seeding and looking at how the complexion will start to take shape more as we move into December.
Yeah.
I think
like you were saying, like, it's not that, the Missouri Valley sucks. It's like, no, dude, like you're just seeing really good teams. Like USD's not dropping games like they used to. Yeah. SDSU doesn't drop games like they used to. Like NDSU still looking the same as they usually look. But like, bro, a lot like SDSU and USD really just essentially cleaned it up pretty much. Like we don't lose to UNI like on those off games that we have. Like, and then USD is going to the wire with SDSU like they're actually trying to win the game now. Not like it's a fairy tale. So I think it's really like you said, like the best are just kind of rising to the top, and I'm interested to see, not to get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm interested to see what Montana State's really about. Like once they start once they start seeing some dudes, I'm interested.
I agree. When you look at the resume top to bottom of the Big Sky Conference, you start to see just a horrible opponent win-loss records, and it really like. Are they? I mean, but then again, then you'll have a team like New Mexico who got smacked in the mouth late against Montana State, beat a team like Washington State. So I think we're seeing a lot of like across the nation, Power 4, Group of 5, FCS, you're seeing certain teams stub their toes that otherwise wouldn't, because there is more parity across college football in general, especially with obviously realignment. Team like USC is a joke in the Big Ten, as I kind of thought they would be, but I thought they'd have a better resume than they do thus far. It's just you're starting to see all these schools start to slip up when they necessarily probably otherwise wouldn't. And so I think that kind of creates a little bit of confusion as to who the dogs are, which this will be settled obviously soon enough with the play on the field. So I still can't believe Kevin brought this up to me the other day. The Citadel has like 18,000 living alumni, and they fundraised the Jacks with about 3 million. Jacks raised like 2 million. I can't remember for what function, scholarship auction, something like that. So that's unacceptable, Jacks fans. Do not let the Citadel outraise us. Come on now. Moving forward a little bit, I want to talk about, before we dive into the rest of Missouri State and kind of what they look like this season and how they'll fare against the Jacks and vice versa, I want to talk about the viral moment that Coach Rule had. So Power 4 football roster limits are now 105 players that are able to be on the roster. And that means that 105 scholarships. Got it.
What up?
And that means 105 scholarships are going to be allotted to all those slots. That's at the Power 4 level. That was due to a court ruling, right? The way that impacts the FCS, though, is far different. So you're going to probably see more talented guys like Isaiah Stallbird, forego that walk-on opportunity if they're not in that echelon to earn a scholarship right away, start right away at these FCS schools. So that means the talent pool opens up. And a lot of these programs historically, like your Nebraskas, that are carrying 150 guys on the roster because you build through development historically. Now it incentivizes poaching from other Power 4 FBS Group of 5s and things like that so that guys can play right away. But what that does to impact the FCS is going to probably increase the talent pool that you get early. So that could be a real nice function of the development of the FCS as a whole, if that indeed is where we stay as a university and program moving forward.
I say, yeah, I think that's good where you don't catch guys. Oh, my bad. Are you saying? No, you got Scott.
No, I didn't have. I'm trying to catch up on what you guys are talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was saying like it. I think, like you said, for a guy like Isaiah Stallbird, where you can kind of like just weigh those options right away. I think that, like you've seen, like with the NIL and how everything's going, like these. I mean, you know, it's a business, right? But like these coaches will straight up lie to you. Like they lied to what's his name from quarterbacks, elusive quarterback, white dude from Salukis.
Holy Cross.
Yeah. They lied to him and was like, yeah, dude, we'll get you 30,000, and they didn't. And thank God he was like, no, I'm not going for that. You know what I mean? I think that's going to empower players a little bit more and say like, hey, dude, like if I want to be the guy, like let me just go play. No, like, and obviously you would want this to happen at SDSU, right? Like, let me just go play right now. I'll get that money back literally in a couple of years. And then if you go into a good program, like let's say you do go to SDSU, you're just going to stick around because you're like, oh, well, dudes are going to the pros from here anyway. So
right. And I think by and large, what Coach Rule was getting at is it hurts the culture of development and incentivizes that play right away mentality, where it tears at the fabric of a culture that someone's trying to build. So it makes it more difficult. That's what he meant by coaches are losing all leverage. Whereas at the FCS level, you still have more of a developmental approach. And even though guys are coming in at certain institutions where there's like, 50 plus transfers on the roster, that might, like your incarnate words, that might be more of a function of trying to build right away and build in a different style. That's not the Dakota schools, right? So you still have that element of development and you can ingrain that culture and deep root it more. So I think you're going to see this is actually really a positive sign for FCS football. Now, that doesn't mean poaching from FCS isn't going to occur also, but in terms of developing guys, that ethos is still going to be able to be there and take hold. So that's good. This is a good point by Kevin. It's a good point by Kevin too. Sorry, Stack, and I want to get your input. quality of high school recruit to FCS schools is way higher than it was 2 years ago. And that'll continue because those FBS schools are more setting sights on other programs at the D1, P4 level, as opposed to getting those high school offers out to kids. And we should flag that and say, because Stack, you brought it up, there's a difference between offers and committable offers. Parents, kids, if you're listening to this podcast, just because you get offered doesn't mean that 12 other dudes at your position haven't been offered and they haven't rank ordered them and you don't know where you stand. So make sure you have transparent communications with these institutions and these coaching staffs and call them on the carpet in a respectful way about what their legitimate interest in you is. You got to do that. Otherwise, you can be out in the dark late. That happened personally to my brother. My brother had like group of five offers. And like, I would say probably 2 to 3 of them were legitimate. So it's important to consider.
So yeah, you almost need to teach a class on that stuff. Cause like these kids be getting deceived sometimes. Like you're a high schooler listening to this, like, bro, you need to just have that conversation with them. Right. Like, it's like talking to a girl that you're not sure likes you or not. Like you would rather err on the side of like, oh, okay, now I know she don't like me, so I probably shouldn't say this to her. Then just being like, oh no, she does. And then like you find out later she go to dance with another dude.
Need to have that what are we conversation with the UNLV.
Oh yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I'm not trying to be crude here, but it's a very explicit and vivid example for people to understand. It's acting as if the stripper's interested in you legitimately. I mean, like, let's be real. I don't think that, you're going to wipe that up. And I don't know oftentimes if these Power 4 schools are really interested in wiping up the recruit that they have 20 offers out to at one position group. So that first lesson is free. If you'd like more, I'd be happy to share more insights with you. Because I've helped a lot of kids get recruited, and it's a murky business. It's kind of like the mob.
No, for real. Yeah. So
Scott, go ahead.
What's up?
Go ahead, Zach.
No, I was just going to say, like, you'll get fortunate, you know what I'm saying? Like with, again, like we both know, like SDSU, like how they operate, like they're like talking to Coach Stig about your offer and stuff is like talking to your grandpa about, like, he's going to be like upfront with you and all that. But like, like some of these dudes are like, they'll slick, and then like, I've seen players like in my time, like talking with Coach Smith about dudes that he was trying to recruit when I was at SDSU, like dudes will really just get tricked out of their treat. And then, one season later, like Coach Smith will be like, yeah, that dude quit because like he just didn't even play. It's like, bro, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear to get you there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll have your own free haircuts. We're building our own monument to you in the locker room. Like,
yeah. And so you got to take it with a grain of salt, but that's what was so great about Saban. He would tell the best 5-star recruits in the world, hey, you have an opportunity to try to play here. It wasn't like, oh yeah, you're going to be the starter. Like, he didn't play that game. And I respect that big time from Saban. Obviously, it's a very different scenario at the FCS level, but the same kind of approach applies. I know, at least in the Dakota schools, like, you got a shot to compete here. You're telling me Jimmy will never, ever promise a kid a starting spot. Even if I don't care how many stars you got to come earn it with that lunch pail, my guy. Like, and that's how you should want it. Like, that's the one thing in this TikTok generation. Let me get on my soapbox quick. That's one thing about this TikTok generation, man. Just because you're not playing, you need to look in the mirror. You need to look in the mirror and say, what am I not doing, or what am I doing that's impeding me from earning the attention from my peers and my coaches to get my ass in between the lines to line up on Saturdays? Because 9.9 times out of 10, it's something you're doing or not doing, something that's sticking or not sticking in the film room, something that's translating or not in the locker room, something that you're doing to hold yourself back when you're looking at your teammates on the depth chart saying, oh, he's just getting more attention because of X, Y, Z, or they just got it out for me. Or you need to cut that cancer out of your mind right now. Right now.
And let's tell them the truth. Your coach will never just like someone more than you, ever.
No.
These dudes get playoff bonuses. It's their like they want that money. So like,
this is
I'm not going to be
meritocracy.
Yeah, they're not like, oh, dude, you know what? I like this dude's face more. Like, he has a cool parent, so like, let's give him some more play. No, it's like, no, dude, I want that playoff bonus. I'm gonna put the dude who's gonna give me the best chance to win out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and going into next year, and for our college players who are watching this, like, bro, if it don't look good right now, thank God there's spring ball. Like, you know how many dudes I've seen turn into like the guy in spring ball? Like, for example, Crockett Krolikowski. Like, Crockett came in, like, he was just like this pudgy dude from nowhere in South Dakota. And then, like, in spring ball, he literally took the spot and was like, yo, like, I'm gonna be our dude at DT this year. Sorry, everyone else. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, yeah, if you're not a senior, you always have a chance to be the guy. But you got to put in that work through off-season lifting and spring ball and then fall camp the next year. Like, you
100%, man.
Cut the cancer out of your mind.
I had a great mentor who wrote 2 phenomenal books, and he was the mindset coach for Nick Saban's teams. He was a mindset coach for Florida State when they had Jameis. I can't confirm if he inspired Jameis's pregame or postgame speeches, but what I can tell you is he always used to say, the gap is the motivator, right? And he wrote 2 great books. One's called It Takes What It Takes. The other one's called Getting to Neutral. He was Russell Wilson's personal performance coach. The guy did a ton of stuff at IMG. He's since passed on. Trevor Mawad, his dad wrote Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul. These are guys with bountiful wisdom, right? So one of the things he always used to say is the gap is the motivator. The gap has to be your motivator when you're not seeing playing time. I think Bobby Knight said in a viral video that was going around today that said the greatest motivator in the world, it can be quotes, it can be all this other fluffy stuff. But the reality is the greatest motivator is the bench. If you're paying attention, the greatest motivator is your ass on the pine. And that has to be how it is, guys. The game has not changed. People have changed. Mm-hmm. So just I'll get down from my soapbox now, but I just wanted to really hammer home those points. Like, you're going to start to see in this era of the early opening of the portal, guys from all levels, FCS, we may or may not have seen a couple dip their toes into it recently. Wish you the best. Wish you the best.
And brother, that's a life thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not just, like for football, like, like that's awesome. But like how Coach Stig would always say, like, there's lessons you learn from football that we want you to take into the rest of your life. Like, bro, like that's one of the biggest things. Like, if I have that mindset where it's like, oh man, like these things aren't working out, like I'll just go somewhere else. Like, bro, that don't work when it's like a job. Right, like if your boss likes somebody else, like what's that dude doing that I'm not doing, and I better start doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Coach Stig too. Real quick, Scott. Coach Stig used to like literally have these conversations with me, like post fall, and without getting into specifics, it would just be like, "Damn, I got a guy who's like shooting me super real and stripping away all the fluff because Stig doesn't fluff anything anyway." And he's like, "I'm sitting there like, damn." This is 100% me. This is 100% on me. And like, I got a guy who never played the game telling me this is really real. Like, he's not just sugarcoating anything because he wants to hurt me or any. That's the thing. Hear the message, not how it's said, not the tone, Yeah.
Right. Well, what's that statistic? Like, every time the transfer portal opens, there's always people on social media, whatever, media members, tracking how many players enter the portal and how many have committed, once the portal closes. And it's like, is it even 30% that end up committing somewhere else?
It's low. It's low.
Or maybe that's like Division 1 to Division 1 and the rest end up, floating somewhere 2, 3 in NAIA. But boy, there's you like you said, Kyle, you wish them the best, but I mean, at the end of the day, statistically, you're probably not going to end up somewhere unless you were that guy. And if you were that guy, you're probably not entering the transfer portal.
The portal is so misused. Like, and I think guys like kind of get into this kind of idea where it's like, oh, the portal so I can get a opportunity to play somewhere else. No, the portal's so Tucker Crack can go to Alabama if he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
That's who the portal's for. The portal's not for like linebacker number 4 who wants to also go play Division I football somewhere else. That's not for you. Those coaches are looking in there for like, okay, who is the best player on this team so I can grab him, so we can pay him, so we can throw him some money so he can play for our FBS school. Yeah. That's not. It's not for you, brother, unless you're looking to go play D2 football somewhere, or D3 football.
Yeah, and that's the sad reality. Dude, that's never been better put. So I appreciate that. We should highlight this here for Kevin real quick. Dollar for dollar match on Selection Sunday for Alex's Lemonade Stand. Who doesn't hate cancer, and who doesn't hate cancer when it impacts children? That's what that cause is going to help in the fight against ending children's cancer. So please make sure you do what you can to support that if you feel so compelled. Man, what a good cause. I think this is an interesting point. Before the portal, many players would end up not finishing their careers anyway. They would just quietly move on. Now they enter the portal to maybe see if someone else wants to take a chance on them. Maybe, yeah. There's something to it. I think first it started out with the grad transfers, then it ended up being a free transfer rule, and now with NIL. If you're cashing in, I don't know why you wouldn't continue to cash in and just try to improve your skill set and try to improve your roster positioning on the depth chart. That's mine. So,
right.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Like, if you're willing to quit, I feel like you just weren't bought in that way. You know what I'm saying? I think, a lot of guys that, there's different dudes. Like, I think Preston Tetzlaff, who literally sat behind linebackers his entire career, his entire career just playing special teams, barely playing, gets his year to start, and he's like, okay, I got to go to law school. Like, something like that, I feel like that's different than, like, being like, hanging your head and feeling sorry for yourself. They're like, I bet if I were at so-and-so, I'd be starting right now. Like,
yeah. And I'm going to speak directly to the players here. Any players who we actually get a wild following from some of the younger kids. If your parents are some of those people who are helicopter parents who are trying to live vicariously through you because they did not necessarily fulfill their sports ambitions or dreams, and now they see you as a vehicle for them to experience that, you really have to look in the mirror and also say if that's something that's benefiting your overall development, right? Because sometimes you got daddies, mommies in your ear or in the coach's ears or becoming a cancer themselves. And now I'm not saying that that's the rule. That's often the exception, especially at the FCS level, but it does happen. And if that does happen, you need to surround yourself with mentors. There's nothing that says you can't surround yourself with people who have been around it and understand when someone is to your detriment or to your benefit. And it's okay to love them anyway. I mean, definitely love your parents. They brought you into the world, created opportunity for you and all that good stuff, but they can also be inhibiting, and it happens time and time again. So just be mindful of that. Put yourself around people who are going to tell you the truth, even when it's inconvenient for you, even when it might not be what you want to hear. And that's Stig and Coach Rogers to a T.
Mm-hmm.
The Real Talk pod today. We love it.
That's right.
More. Yeah,
Speaking of Real Talk here too, want to just shout out quick. I know, Stack, you said you're a suffering Bears fan. I've been a suffering Vikings fan for a long time. And the Wild Hares got Bloody Mary bar on Sundays for Vikings games and all the other NFL watches. So make sure you check them out. Sometimes you need a little pick-me-up with a Bloody Mary. Drink it responsibly, but also it kind of helps dull the pain from Vikings games. I know that we're riding a weird wave right now, but you never know how long that's going to continue.
So, yeah, you a Bears fan. Yeah, bro. Just going in there and hopefully you don't even remember the game, dog.
Yeah.
You guys are probably Niners fans like me here this weekend, too. They're playing the Packers. So
there you go. It's so weird. Like, I agree with Naito on the JFPA Facebook page. He said this week, like, he does not have a pro team. I like the Vikings because, like, it goes all the way back to my mom freaking out over the Vikings when I was a little kid playing with my Legos, like an autist, like I am. But it was kind of ingrained in me early. But really, I root for the Jacks that are in the league or people that I know who are in the league. Like Mason, like I'll watch him every weekend. I get a chance. Shout out to him last night. Played really well. Looked like a great game in the snow. Obviously, Jameis is a character that was fun to watch. You got the reigning defensive player of the year wreaking havoc on the other side. Yeah. And it's always fun to watch guys like Tucker Kraft. So this weekend,
Yeah.
tune in to Tucker Kraft, get a shot to make some big plays. That's always fun. Again, going back to last week, the week before, Rose Boom picking off a pass, toting the rock down the sideline. That was fun. Just always good to watch NFL Jacks do their thing on Sundays.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Wild Hair. Get there. Make sure you watch the Jacks game on Saturday. And speaking of that Jacks game, let's dive into Missouri State. So Missouri State started off hot and strong. They slipped up in their first. They started off, I should say, their record looked good, but their initial game was an L to Montana. And then Montana had some slip ups, as we've seen most recently to UC Davis in prime time. Shout out Isaiah Jackson again, former Jack. But overall, Missouri State is not able to receive votes in the top 25 of the FCS because they are a transitional program. They're going up to the FBS group of 5. So they are not eligible for the FCS playoffs either. But that doesn't mean that this final game of the year isn't going to be their Super Bowl, so to speak, to use a damn cliche. That said, you know, they have a bone to pick with the Dakotas. Last week, they got bludgeoned by North Dakota State to the tune of 59 points. I want to say 21 in the first quarter. It was an absolute bloodbath in Fargo. And I think, you know, when you look at the box score, a lot of their points kind of came late when the game was pretty well decided. When you look at North Dakota State, they were able to get whatever they wanted on the ground. They ran for 364 total yards, 10 yards a clip, with 3 touchdowns on the ground. Cam Miller was efficient as always, through 4 TDs. He did have an interception, which I think was like the first of the year. So in terms of them being motivated, I don't think we have to question any of that. Gentlemen, what's your initial impressions of this game?
I say, yeah, the last few times the Jacks have played them, they've taken it to them, and I think it was 21, where they were like kind of supposed to be like the guys, you know, like one of the 22. Yeah, it was 22, where they were supposed to be like real nice, and like, you know, I think I had talked to Coach Smith that year, and he's like, dude, like, this might be the best offense like we've ever seen, and like all this. Granted, I think he was being hyperbolic because I think, you know, they were trying to take people seriously. But I mean, you know, they were taken dead serious that year, and then the Jacks kind of pantsed them a little bit. Jared DePriest had his big sack that game.
He was
too.
a wrecking ball.
So I think, you know, they're definitely not too happy with the Jacks right now, and you know, maybe to end the season off on a sweet note, like they would love nothing more than to like kind of wreck the Jack season right now.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
Looks like it's senior day there. So their last home game of the season, obviously. Last game in the FCS, last opportunity to pick off a highly ranked opponent at home in front of their home crowd before they go off to their .com bowl aspirations in the CUSA. So, I mean, they're going to be motivated. And that offense, they score a lot of points. I mean, besides last week, they haven't seen a defense like ours, so we'll see what happens. But they got some dudes. Their defense might have some holes, but I would expect to see some points scored in this game. Quite a few.
Yeah, and you look at last year, right? We were able to get what we wanted through the air. Mark was like hitting Jaden Yonke left and right in that game. I think Jaden had like 12 passes that he caught, maybe more, maybe closer to the 15 mark. Something that we hadn't seen since UIW with Mark, where he hit Griffin Wilde for 10 passes in that game. So that's incredible in terms of a sheer volume of catches. I don't know how we're going to attack him. I would prefer us to attack him again. Would you say, Stack? It's not running the ball, but running the damn ball downhill. So I would like us to do that. But that being said, we should also learn to take what the defense gives us. And if they're given the passing game like they did in last season's matchup, that'd be an effective way to attack them, because I think Griffin's due for some more. Will we see Graham Goring back in the lineup? I'm not sure. I haven't seen the depth chart pop out yet. But it'll be fascinating to see kind of the plan of attack, the scripted plays. I'd like to see our scripted plays early improve. We've talked about that. One of our keys to victory, gentlemen, Stack and I talked about it ad nauseum, is starting fast. We have got to start fast. That means 7 on the board in the first series.
I think last time we played there, didn't Zach Hines have like 2 or 3 touchdowns or something? They were giving up a lot over the middle to the tight ends. we get, I mean, granted, they're a pretty transient program, but if they have some of the same personnel that was struggling with that, or they have some of the same philosophy, I guess, that might give up some stuff over the top to the big men, it might be a good thing for us to kind of target that. Granted, I mean, they know more than we do, but it might be open, and I could see our tight end room having a big day.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think, especially with how they played last week, they might try and overcorrect too on the run game. So like, I think it might be even more open. And let's say they don't. Like, one thing that I love is like when you call plays and then you're putting the team in a certain spot and it's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? That's one thing that I liked about our play calling. I think, not to say our play calling this year is like bad or nothing, but I say one thing that, and granted, Lujan's team was a whole lot different. Like you could have had a much worse offensive coordinator calling plays for those guys and still win a national championship. So like, I'm not saying that, but to a certain degree, like, bro, like, let's say if it's running the ball, like, all right, well, what are you going to do to stop it? Like at a certain point, right? Like if I'm calling it and it's working, like if I'm calling power and it's working, like against, I think Villanova, it was like, I don't even think it was power, but like we just kept running the ball and there was just nothing they could do about it. It's like, all right, bro, well, you still got 45 minutes of playtime to figure it out. And if you don't, oh, well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what it needs to be. Like, don't abandon something just because it doesn't get what you expected to early. I think the offensive line, 605 Hogs, did a great job on Saturday of, for the most part, not allowing any penetration, but later on as the game progressed, getting a hat on a hat, right? You started to settle into this scheme that they had devised throughout the week. And they really got a chance to flex their muscles on them. And that's what we like to see. And there's a good balance in the attack. Got to score in the red zone too. I mean, it was frustrating, and I don't like to split hairs, but if I'm gonna, you got to be able to put it in the end. So you got to know where you're at on the field. I know Griffin's young, but got to know where you're at on the field. You can't get caught out of the back of the end zone, a la the Purdue receiver, which was absolutely embarrassing. Not even knowing where he was in the end zone. Absolutely embarrassing. Also ridiculous. Why are you going to paint the end line the same as the actual end zone? Friggin' engineers, and they can't figure that shit out. They need to just collapse the program, become a basketball school. You know, hell's getting chilly when IU's football team is ranked in the top 5 and you can't even put up points. Oh, it's embarrassing. My family went there, so I love to criticize them when they're just being an absolute joke because the Jackrabbits would hang 40 on them. It's going to be a beautiful day too, so weather shouldn't be a deterrent of any kind, whether it be passing the ball or toting the rock on the ground. Saturday's low is 32 in Springfield, high of 59. Beautiful football weather. The sun is going to be shining. Hopefully the crowd is good too. We always like, disappointing some opposing fans. Obviously, it's going to be a hard-fought game. No shade thrown at Missouri State, formerly known as Misery State, but it is what it is. They're a good program. They got a lot of good recruits coming in now that they're transitioning up to FBS. Their quarterback is from Rockwall, Texas, so he's got football in his blood. Jacob Clark, he had an admirable day on Saturday in the Fargo Dome. 18 of 30, 250 yards passing, roughly 8.2 average and a touchdown. Jacardia Wright's a name that we're familiar with. We heard from him last year. I believe he got injured in the game though last year at a certain point and was out. But 13 carries for 68 yards on the Bison is not a terrible day. 5.2 yards per carry and a touchdown with a long of 15. Iverson Young had a long of 28 yards. Pretty dope first name, if I don't say so myself. 6 carries for 55. So I mean, they can definitely establish an offensive rhythm and game plan, but now can they get points out of it? Would be the question. Right. And that's really what the defense this year has kind of really shown that they're capable of is, stiffening up and making sure they get off the field on third down. Our third down percentage is pretty damn good. In terms of the receiving core, you got Hunter Wood, who led them last week with 4 catches for 73 yards. So he's going to be someone number 2 that we need to keep an eye on. Jaden Becks as well, number 5. He had 3 for 65, and he had their lone touchdown, or actually they had 2 touchdowns through the air. One of them came late from Jamarie Robinson, 2 catches, 16 yards, 1 touchdown. So they had their main production through the air, as they have historically kind of been more of a run and gun type school. So we're going to see, man. We're going to see defensively in terms of the points that they're giving up. Missouri State is allowing 317 total points on the season, and divided by 11, that is 28.8 points a game.
That's so,
yeah. So what helps a struggling offense more than a team that likes to give up points, right? That's all I can say. And I wouldn't even say that Jacks is struggling. I'm saying more a team that's trying to find a rhythm, more early rhythm. That's a good sign, but we'll see, man. Matchups are everything. They're going to run another multiple defense. They're going to be an odd front. I'd like to see more unbalanced lines to kind of move the bubble and to create the favored advantage, right? Stack knows all about that. Odd fronts tend to give people some trouble, but you're going to see them more and more. The 3-3-5s, the 3-4s, the 4-2-5s. I mean, that's not an odd front, but it's kind of a different front because it has more people inserting from second level to stop the run and to support it. So we'll see how it shakes out on Saturday. Gentlemen, thoughts about their defense or their offense?
No, I'd say, odd fronts are always – I enjoyed running them, like when we would do that, when we'd throw in like our odd fronts and like our move fronts, just because like if you're an offensive line, like your point of attack like just looks different, right? Like if let's say like you're drawing up a play, like duos looks completely different if it's an odd front versus an over front, or
meaning double teams.
Like power would look completely different versus, that kind of stuff. And I think it's a good, like, it's something to like just screw with the offensive lineman a little bit. But I mean, our guys, like we said, like last week, we just seen it. And I think it's kind of a good week to go like right back into that, just because, trying to get like that practice on it right now, because like you're going to see it in the playoffs too.
Exactly.
Right? So like getting as much live game reps against that, the better.
And I think, Stack, you correct me on this if I'm wrong. My assumption of why we're starting to see more of this is because the different blitz variations you can run, but also because at the FCS level in particular, it's easier to recruit a ton of linebackers who can maybe play an undersized nickel or dime, which is just a fifth or sixth defensive back, as opposed to trying to recruit, 2 and 3 deep of, an even four-man front, right? So that's kind of my take. What's your thoughts on it? Because you're the defensive guy.
I would say it's easy if you kind of have like a dude at D-line, like it's kind of really easy to play. Like I'd say like a dude like Caleb, for example, or Caleb or like Kellen, even like a dude who could really like 2-gap at the 0. Yeah. And I think the Missouri Valley play is like really good D-line play. So like there's probably like 4 or 5 teams that could legit run that because they have a dude that's good enough to do it. I think that's why they do it. But again, like I'm biased. Like I'm thinking like, that's a good D lineman. That's why they run odd fronts.
Well, also like if you can get just, I mean, honestly, USD impressed me with their interior defensive line play. They had some big bodied dudes who could move a little bit too. And they could be 2-gap eaters like you're talking about. When you can eat up 2 A gaps, that's where every RB really wants to press, whether you're an outside running back or not. You still want to stick it and press A if the wash gets taken care of or whatever. So if you can eat up 2 gaps, that's a problem. Also, these 3-4 defenses, they do a lot of stunting and they run some different, variations with blitzes. And we got guys like Jared Brinkman from Northern Iowa in years past, or guys like you were saying, Caleb Sanders, who I would say is an unconventional nose tackle, because he's more of a wrestling body. That was his quickness and his hand game, his hand fighting game when he transitioned pass rush and all that was next level, as you can see, because he's doing it in the CFL. Just pretty incredible to see. And I think it just causes fits too when you have your outside backers walked up on those tight ends, because they can just get in their grill real quick and they can't really establish movement in the same way. When they're dealing with lankier, I know going back to SIU historically before the portal ate them up. They had guys like that. So those are always frustrating dudes, especially when you like to run stick a lot, or you're doing, different hitch concepts. If you like to run slants is not good against a 3-4. You really got to find that mid-level void in the defense between the safeties over the linebackers if you're looking for the passing game to open up. So that's why to your point, Scott, earlier, that's why Hines had such a good day
Right.
historically. But we'll see. It should be good, gentlemen. Let's get into our players of the games and predictions so we can get out of here.
I'll rock first. I'll go for offense. We're gonna go first.
Yes.
I'll go.
Best unit
give me
first.
Mark. Give me Mark Gronowski. Why not? Guy's
regular
gonna get
season
it going. Yeah, going to the playoffs. Like he gonna get right and let him know. Like, start watching your film for the playoffs, boys. It's gonna be a long one.
I like it.
Nice.
Who you got, Scott?
I'm gonna go with Lamar. I'll go with Lamar. I think isn't one of the best ways to attack that odd front just to run right at it, right? And the way he ran last weekend, if he keeps that up, follows his linemen, follows his blocks, I think he's gonna have a heck of a day. So we'll go with Lamar.
I like it. I'm gonna go with my man Jim here. I'm gonna go Kirby. Hopefully he gets some more run like he did on Saturday. He got run in pivotal moments and then also some cleanup stuff before we pulled all of our key players. I'm going to go Kirby, and I will agree with Seth here. It was a toss-up. I wanted to go Alpers. Let's hope the tight ends eat on Saturday, whether it's him or Stoffel. That would be fun to see. Switching over to defense, gentlemen, who do we have? Or Scott, yeah, you picked already. Amar.
Yep. So, Stack, go ahead.
All right, defense. Yeah, Adam Bach's gonna be pissed. I haven't seen angry Adam Bach very often. I believe that's something scary to see. So I'm gonna go with my guy, Captain America, on the defense.
I like it.
Let's see. Judging by the North Dakota State game they played, they were able to move the ball a little bit against the Bison. We are very similarly built. I think they're going to try to pass the ball a little bit more because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. Let's go with Dallas Beanham. I think he's due for a big game. Go for maybe a pick or two or a pick six, something like that. He's going to go for something big here.
Nice. Shout out Durance from last week being the Missouri Valley Defensive Player of the Week. Love to see that. The juice was loose. Hitting him with the Prezi ×2. You love to see it. Seth Meyer brings up the dog here, the dog of the year so far, Caleb Francel, in my opinion. While Caleb, I think, is going to have a stellar performance, really solid showing again, I'm going to go with an interior defensive line guy. Actually, I'm not going interior. I'm going to bump it out to the edge. I'm going to go with Zach Wilson. I think Mr. Wilson is going to have at least one sack, hopefully multiple, but for sure he'll get one. Shout out Brian Williams and those Florida Jacks, making a name for themselves in blue and white. And he's also got some great shots of him talking that talk against defenses this year that I saw on the gram.
So it's great to see Zach. Like I always say, like Zach was my favorite roommate, and like that's a guy that we're kind of talking about, like a dude that really stuck it out like his whole career, and to now kind of reap the benefits of that. You know what I'm saying? Like you're playing behind multiple all-time DNs at SDSU, and like kind of see him come in and like really embody that and being more vocal, and I love it. You know what? Shout out Zach, man. I love that, Kyle.
Thank you. Yeah, Dan likes Balloon. Balloon stepped it up a lot lately. Made some big plays, whether it's recoveries, forced fumbles against UNI, stuff like, or fumble recoveries against UNI as well, and sacks and TFLs. So the big boy, who I think still has the most pro potential from a body standpoint, as far as on that interior D line. I like the things I'm seeing from him. Jim brings up a good thing right here, real quick. Tucker Large, always a good option, but Jim says, does Dallas need a pair of picks for the all-time INT record? I believe so. I think he sits at 14, and I think if he gets, I think he's either sitting at 13 or 14. I think he needs one or two more, either one to break it, one to tie it, one to break it, or one to break it because he might be tied. I'm not sure. It's close. Either way, maybe leave no doubt Dallas and get a pair.
Yeah,
love it, gentlemen. Score predictions.
42-6. I don't see him moving the ball too great. I think our twos, when that time comes, they're going to lock in and play some ball. So go 42-6.
Right.
Late 6.
All right. 45-10 was mine. I think we're going to light up the scoreboard a little bit. perhaps we get a little bit conservative in the waning moments of the game, like has kind of been the trend. They might move the ball a little bit. We'll see. But 45-10, that's my prediction.
I like it, gentlemen. I'm going to hover more around the stats. I'm going to be the analyst geek here. If they're giving up about 28 points a game, I'm going to say we get a touchdown. Better than that, I'm going to say 35. If we're only giving up about 7 points a game, 12 on average, 7 points a game in the last several, I'm going to say that they get right at that average mark where it's 12. I'm going to go 35-12. Good guys. Spoiling their final game of the 2024 campaign for the Missouri Bears. So Missouri State Bears. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be an entertaining game. It takes place at 2 p.m. in Springfield, Illinois. The weather's going to be great. Make sure you catch it on ESPN. Plus, if you're not there in person, if you're there in person, make your voice heard loud and proud on third down. Get after it so the good guys can get off the field. And want to shout out our sponsors one more time. Thank you for being a title sponsor of the pod, the Wild Hare in Brookings, South Dakota. Voted one of the best bars, if not the best, in Brookings, South Dakota. Make sure you check out the Jacks game this Saturday. It's going to be on their big screen as well as on the other TVs, and they're piping in the audio as well. Want to shout out our other title sponsor, Udemark Insurance. When life throws you curveballs and you are just confused as to how you can go about your healthcare coverage, they have products that work with Medicare. Reach out to them. You can email me or you can contact me on my DM on X for more information on how to get in touch with them to learn more about a consultation and their products. Shout out to Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro. Before 2 p.m. tomorrow, you got to make your way to the bistro to get some good breakfast. They have great farm-to-table food, so you know where it comes from. It's locally sourced, and it's delicious. They also have excellent espresso, drip coffee, as well as teas and all the fun seasonal beverages on tap there. They also have that spot on Main if you need to do some last-minute cramming for exams prior to the Thanksgiving break. Make sure you get that in, and then make sure you go to the Wild Hare and watch the game. Gentlemen, it's been amazing to chat with you and get on our soapboxes as a whole and talk shop. With that, go big, go blue, go Jacks.
Go Jacks.